So Brinley, what she's dealing with is just an exceedingly rare, an ultra rare genetic disorder called Ogden syndrome.
There's about 100, probably 150 people diagnosed right now at the moment.
It's a variant on the NAA10 gene on the X chromosome, which basically means that every cell in her body has a 50-50 chance of having something wrong with it, and that really makes life challenging for her.
That can affect your heart, your brain, your motor planning, and really interacting with your world.
Everyone is just made up of, thousands and thousands of genes. Everyone's genes are made up of four basic letters. And on the NAA10 gene, which happens to be a very critical gene to your entire body and development, there's just a very simple letter point mutation where one letter changes from a C to a T. And from there, it just snowballs.
Ogden syndrome is a neurodevelopmental condition that involves developmental delay, intellectual disability, along with sometimes other issues like cardiac issues, arrhythmias. Sometimes these children have really a lot of trouble feeding themselves or eating.
It's an X-linked genetic disorder, and so it does impact males as well. But unfortunately, it's even more devastating to males. So there's very few males that have actually survived.
As far as what she can't do, she can't walk or crawl, but she can still use her hands to do basic things like with toys. She can't necessarily feed herself. Test after test after test says she's normal, but obviously we knew something wasn't quite right.
From her birth, she immediately had growth restriction, she had hydrocephalus, she had a brain surgery, and then at 8 months old, she was diagnosed with cortical cerebral visual impairment.
There's a good portion of these sweet little girls that never accomplish walking, and we just didn't know. And literally a year ago, we weren't sure that she would ever walk.
It affects all of her, basically everything in her body. Her fine motor, her brain functionality, everything really has been challenging for her.
She's 4 years old, and she has a crazy packed therapy schedule. It's about 27 hours a week of therapy. She goes to physical therapy, which helps her just improve her gross motor skills and coordination. She goes to occupational therapy, which just works on self-help skills like using utensils and grasping objects. Then she goes to speech, which is just about learning basic sign language and how to use her communication devices. She goes to ABA therapy, which has really helped, improve her behavior and help her just communicate with others and socializing with her peers. And all of this for Brinley has to be learned through therapy. Those therapies are oftentimes hundreds of dollars an hour, so it's expensive.
We had gone to a therapist, a PT, for the last 3.5 years. And she has been in 4 pairs of AFOs, which are braces for her legs to help her walk and have her feet lay the correct way.
It's so slow and it's such a challenge for Brinley that it doesn't just happen in one day. It was a matter of weeks and months, really, that we started to see, hey, she's almost taking a step on her own with less and less help.
I think that the dream of many clinicians has been something called gene therapy, where you're actually going in and trying to actually fix the actual letter change. At the moment, we're still not pursuing genome editing. We're not at the moment trying to fix the letter change. We're instead pursuing a strategy where you're trying to give the enzyme back, but you're doing it at the level of giving a gene back.
The ultimate cure for these children, a genomic cure. That is not something that's going to happen tomorrow. That's not something that's going to probably happen a year or two from now. The science is there, but it's still a little bit ways away. Developing a drug from scratch for them, for this disorder, that could take just as much time, maybe even more than a genomic cure.
The impact could be, something pretty minor to where, okay, maybe Brinley's ceiling is that she's going to learn 50 words in her life. You don't know what the impact is. We don't know how far they could go, but the answer is there'll be an improvement. And if you can go from saying, 50 words to 200 words in your lifetime, that's a game changer.
My daughter might be able to walk or talk. She might see better. Hopefully her epilepsy would be cured and her heart disease could be cured, and that we as her family wouldn't have to constantly worry about the next day for her.
We don't know exactly what her future holds. It can be scary. We know that she's going to be dependent upon us for her mother and father for the rest of her life, unless some miracle happens, right? It's not impossible. We see how quickly medicine advances and technology advances, but you also have to be realistic and understand that research and medicine doesn't happen quick.
It is absolutely critical that we have funding to be able to determine exactly how these children are developing.
Right now, there's no treatment for Ogden syndrome, but our foundation is currently, helping to fund several different avenues to work towards finding a cure or possible treatments. The foundation has a great website and social media accounts to help raise awareness.
Two things that we're asking for on a much smaller level, on the order of tens of thousands of dollars. We're trying to get money to just allow us to study, the natural history, they call it, of the disease. It's basically looking at how do these children develop and how do they do with existing therapies. If you want to develop a different kind of therapy, like a drug therapy or a gene therapy, then you're really looking at anywhere from $3 million to $30 million.
This still has to be tested. It still costs an enormous amount of money. But in the meantime, I need something for my daughter short term.
When you donate to something like Ogden Cares and you donate specifically to Ogden syndrome, which is an incredibly rare genetic disorder, you're making a huge impact to a small population of little girls, but also you can know that there'll be uses that can be applied to all genetic disorders.
I look at her and I look at the struggles that she has, and I look at that smile on her face, and I look at the laughter coming out of her and the sparkle in her eye, and that's why I'm in awe of her. She is happy.